Hello, we're going to do a follow-up talk to our earlier talk on the sacred geometry of the universe. In that talk, we argued that there were a lot more dimensions than people actually think there are out there. And the reason for this is that in these extra dimensions, we're storing extra energy. And most of the energy in the universe is in these other so-called hidden dimensions. So I will just refer you to that talk to go see what's going on. Let me just briefly review what's happening here in that. So let me go to this graphic here. And what we found out roughly 100 years ago was the following, that telescopes finally got sufficiently capable to gather light so that they observed that what they saw as blotches of stars or fuzzy stars or whatever, when they actually looked at them and with enough light gathering detail, they discovered they were actually galaxies. And that these galaxies, in fact, were many of them were spinning cartwheels. They were spirals that had different arms of different lengths and so forth. So what people did then was they said, well, we know that there's, say, 100 million stars in this galaxy, and they each have the average mass of, say, our sun. And so they're all attracted together by one another by gravitation. And if we let them spin around one another, let's just check to make sure that everything still works. And when they did these calculations, they discovered that if that was what was going on, say 100 million stars, each on the average, the mass of the sun, that this galaxy would just spin apart. There would be no reason, not enough sufficient gravitational attraction to hold everything together. And that suggested that there was extra matter there, which couldn't be seen. So it was either transparent or dark. And the word dark matter is what's been adopted today. And the dark matter makes up the bulk of what's going on, so that the other conclusion that came out of this was that each of these galaxies was running away from one another. There are a few coming at us, but by and large, most of the galaxies are running away from us, and they're being driven away by an unseen energy, which is called dark energy, which is actually expanding the geometry of the universe to drive everything apart. They're not actually moving. These extra dimensions are actually expanding the space that's out there to cause these things to move apart from one another. So the combination of dark energy and dark matter makes up 95% of all the matter and energy in the universe. And we've been studying 5% of it, what we call matter and energy, for the last 500 years, and we missed the other 95%. So this is a pretty big miss, and that's why we spend time looking at these extra dimensions. So let's get out of this, and we're going to take a completely different look at this now. We're going to take a look here at a book, and the book has been around for quite a while, but it's based on an oral tradition. It's called the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali. And the edition that we'll be working with here in this talk is that put together by Edwin Bryant. And you can see you're going to get this from Amazon. So the Yoga Sutras are oral snippets of Sanskrit. There's roughly, depending on how you count, 194 or 195 sutras, and they're broken down into 4 different books. The book 1 of these sutras, each of the sutras consists of, say, 3 to 5 words in Sanskrit. So you can see that you could memorize the entire Yoga Sutras here in Sanskrit, because it's really not that many words. But you know, it would take some work, but it's not out of the question. Now, Patanjali, roughly around the year 0 AD, no one knows, simply wrote down what all these sutras were. So he didn't create the sutras. The sutras had been around for thousands of years, and the sutras by themselves have a lot of interesting information. What in the 4 books that we have in the Yoga Sutras, the first book is dealing with what the Western world would call yoga. So this is where there's a push for you to relax your body, to do stretching and different postures to make sure that you're not distracted by different muscle pains or aching joints or whatever, and to also to calm your mind so that your mind is completely absent of all the chatter that's going on around you all the time. So that's book 1, roughly 50 sutras of the Yoga Sutras, which raises the question of what in the world are in the other 3/4 of this book. Well, that's what we're going to look at today. We're going to be looking at book 3 in particular, and I'm going to go now to that. Okay, give me a second here. I have it here on my Kindle. So here it is. There's a particular school of metaphysics, and that's the school that Edwin Bryant uses when he's dealing with this Yoga Sutras book. And I'm just going to skip through this here so you'll start to see, what's going on. I'm already into book 3. Hold on one second while I just get to an appropriate point. So one of the things that happens is that if you are able to meditate, you are able to drown out, to have no, to actually achieve enlightenment and understand the true reality of what's around you. So conceptually, what you've done is the world that you see around you, you could think of as a movie script that's running around. And as you learn to meditate with sufficient practice, you can step away from this and you'll be looking at this movie, but you'll realize that the movie's only part of the story and that there's a much richer universe around you. And that universe consists of these extra dimensions that we talked about that are containing this extra energy. And at the same time, when you've achieved this level of enlightenment, you gain various skills, which are called siddhis, siddhis. And these siddhis are, on the one hand, Patanjali speaks disparagingly of these because they're actually, what we'll be talking about, but they take you away from your real focus, which is trying to understand or to meditate on the universe and the world around you and your role in it. So the issue here is not to focus on whether these claims of these siddhis, which we'll be going through in a minute, are true, but rather how they might be constructed as fundamental to the knowledge system here, which is called Sankhya metaphysics. So let's skip ahead here, and we see that the first thing that comes up in the physical or elemental makeup of any object in reality are the so-called tanmatras, which are in turn these transformation of these gunas. Right away in gunas, you'll see we're referring to book 3, sutra number 44. So we're going to go to that in a moment. But the thing to keep in mind about this is that they're a layering of these different things here. The yogi here can penetrate the substructure of any material object by meditation. If it can achieve the savikachara state using this raw tanmatra energy that transcends limitations of time and space. So you can attain an experience of external reality that's truly cosmic in scope. That's the first thing to keep in mind. The yogi can even go beyond this and get even greater knowledge here by deeper and deeper meditation. And the end result is that you end up being potentially omnipresent, that you're able to understand at virtually every level what it is that makes up the world around you. And but you can only achieve this through a great deal of practice. So let's skip forward here. We're going to take this as a given. Again, this was written down around 0 AD, 2,300 years ago, 2,000 years ago. And the thing to keep in mind that what these many commentators have talked about on these CDs is that they're not to be performed just for the sake of performing them, but to actually, again, achieve or take you into this other realm of enlightenment. So here we are in Sutra, say Book 3, Sutra 17, and you can see how this is laid out. First, the first part is written in Sanskrit, and then the Sanskrit is translated here into English down below it. And then finally, there's a final translation, which I'll just read here. Due to the correlation between word, meaning, and idea, confusion ensues. So by performing samayama on the distinction between them, between the distinction between word, meaning, and idea, knowledge of the speech of all creatures arises. So in other words, by concentrating this way, you can understand the speech of all creatures. Now, I would have to say this would probably be done through telepathy, not through speech. But as far as you're concerned, you're talking to someone else, and that's what you'd see. So that's an interpretation of this. I'm going to skip ahead here because, as you can see, there's a lot of discussion that takes place here. The next sutra, this is number 18 in Book 3, says, by bringing previous samskaras into direct perception comes the knowledge of previous births. That is, what's going on here is apparently you have a soul. The soul is immortal, and it incarnates with your body at birth, and it disassociates at death, and it incarnates again with a new body and so forth. And if you can work at this, you'll end up being able to understand all of these previous lives that you've had. So that's number 18. One notion that comes up here is that you end up producing the results of karma. So your type of birth, your longevity, and your experience in life, all of these things, according to the yoga psychology, are recorded in the original context. So you get a direct readout of this earlier life and the karma associated with it, which you can draw on, which you can learn. Now we're going to skip ahead here to number 19. So from their ideas, one can attain knowledge of others' minds. In other words, we can actually link our minds to others. and see what they're thinking without them telling us. We go to Sutra 20, so that knowledge is not accompanied by its object, since this object is not the object of the yogi's mind. So in other words, the yogi can perceive the emotional state of others, but may not necessarily be aware of the object causing that state of mind. You're just sensing it. Okay. Number 21, by performing samayama on the outer form of the body, invisibility is attained. This occurs when perceptibility is obstructed by blocking contact between the light and the eyes. So what's probably happening here is that by this intense meditation, you can actually move your entire physical body into one of these other dimensions. And by doing so, since we said most of these dimensions are hidden, you can end up becoming invisible. No one can see where you went. And there's examples of this that have occurred time and again. If you read the Bible, you'll see that there was an instance where Jesus was in the temple dealing with the priests in the temple, and they were objecting to what he was teaching, and all of a sudden he simply disappeared and walked out of the temple. And I encourage you to go read the Bible to go find this. So the next thing that comes up here is, skipping ahead to number 22. So karma is either quick to fructify or slow. It's quick or it's slow. That's okay. By samayama on karma, or on portents, knowledge of one's death arises. So by focusing on this, you're looking at what's called your akashic thread, your life there, which is it can be thought of as a string in a gigantic tapestry of all lives, that you can see your birth, but you can also see your death when you're going to die. A different thing that comes with this, we'll just skip ahead, is by employing samayama on friendliness and such, strengths are acquired. So these strengths are friendship, compassion, hold on while I skip ahead, joy, equanimity. All of those are very happy threads to keep in mind here. So skipping ahead again, for number 24, by practicing samayama on the strengths, the yogi attains the strength of an elephant and so forth. So here, what happens is, by drawing on this other energies that are around you, it's possible for you to get the power of the wind to be able to do things that people have demonstrated, such as under extraordinary circumstances, they can lift a car up that's pinning someone there under it. And they could not do that otherwise, but by focusing their mind, they're able to do it. And there's a variety of examples of this. When we go to Sutra 25, by directing the light of cognition, one obtains the knowledge of subtle, concealed, and remote things. So what this is cognition here, what could also be called clairvoyance, that you can focus off into the far reaches of space. You can focus down into the microcosm, down into the atomic realm, into the subatomic realm, into the quantization of space itself, where you have space is discrete, space is a foam that is all around us, and the foam by itself we can examine. And when we do this, my colleague Ron Cowan observed that these space compartments were all covered with what he called information, and the information in all of these space compartments is collectively scanning its surroundings, and when it detects a change, then it has algorithms there in the information, as well as the capability to store bits And it ends up acting on this change, whatever the change is, according to the laws of nature. And the end result of this is that this information, since it's everywhere, is what Carl Jung called the collective unconscious. This is what you could conceive of as being God that's everywhere. Or you could go to David Bohm, the physicist, who talked about the implicate and the explicate. And the explicate is what we would see around us, but the implicate is what this information causes to go happen. The implicate rules things. It controls everything. In particular, this information controls by its very being the laws of nature. So that's pretty amazing. If we go to Sutra 26, by performing samayama on the sun arises knowledge of different realms in the universe. So there, according to this in Hindu cosmography, there's 7 worlds or realms, and they have a hierarchy of these things, and the different gods in different levels of these things. We could think of these other higher dimensions we talked about before as in fact containing etheric or spiritual or mental cognitive beings, things that are not physical necessarily, but they're spiritual or mental, and they exist in these higher realms, and they end up being the things that run around in all the different realms in the universe. I encourage you to go back and look at the earlier talk about these dimensions to see what we're talking about. This particular thing here focuses on the Hindu approach, which is an approach. There's other approaches. The most appealing approach to me is that due to the Essenes, to the Jews that followed the Kabbalah, and in that they determined that there really was a tree of life that had 10 Sephiroth, or 10, if you will, compactified dimensions there, and that was key. And then we happen to be in this little subspace of 3 dimensions of space and 1 of time, which is separate from the 10 Sephiroth, or the 10 higher dimensions. Totally consistent with this Hindu view as well. Different frameworks, different ways of looking at these things at different periods in time. When we go to Sutra 27 in Book 3, with using Samayama, we can go to the moon and we can have knowledge of the entire solar system. So apparently you can have your mind leave your body and transit to the moon or to the other planets in the solar system. And by an extension, you can go off to other stars elsewhere, which themselves would have planets and moons. So that's pretty amazing. In Sutra 28, we talk about using Samayana on the pole star, so we understand the knowledge of the movement of the stars. Well, the pole star changes. We know there's a so-called great year of roughly 25,000 years, and we have 12 houses there. So roughly every 2,160 years, we move from one house to another. We have just finished in the house of Pisces, and we're moving into the age of Aquarius here. And the pole star in the age of Pisces was the North Star, but that's going to be changing as we go forward in time. In Sutra 29, we look at the navel plexus using Samayama, and we get knowledge of the arrangement of the body. So the navel plexus is one of the 7 chakras, major chakras that we have, and these are all linked to one another, all 7 of them, plus we have a crown chakra. And so the net of it is that this is intimately linked to the arrangement of your body, to the health of your body. So implicitly, what this is saying is that it's inadequate to simply deal with the physical body. You have to also remember that you have the spiritual body, these 7 chakras that are linked here, that comprise what we would call your soul, and the linkage between them is critical for leading to a healthy body. You have to have your chakras all in sync, as well as your physical body. You can't just do one without the other. Then we go to the, skipping ahead here, chakra 30, using samayama on the pit of the throat, comes the cessation of hunger and thirst. So it is, well known that there are gurus, there are people that have not eaten or drank anything whatsoever for a year, 2 years. No need to worry about waste products. Somehow they're able to draw an energy from the world around them through samayama, and that is what it is. In Sutra 31, we draw on the subtle tortoise channel, so we get the steadiness here. So below the pit of the throat, or the trachea, is a particular nadi, or a particular channel that's shaped like a tortoise. And if we go there to the tip of the throat, which is where one of these chakras is, then there's a lot of blood vessels. There's a whole subtle network of entities called nadis, and these in turn circulate the blood through the body, and by controlling through samayama, we get excellent blood flow. So we end up with nutrients going to all the cells and waste products leaving the cells. You become much healthier. In Sutra 32, we go to using samayama on the light of the skull. And so we have a vision of these siddhas, or these perfected beings that are attained. So what we have here, by drawing on this light through the opening on the top of your head, we end up with the possibility to see where is it that we're striving for. What is our notion of perfection? In Sutra 33, we use intuition so that knowledge comes of everything. So all of the things that we're talking about here, intuitively, like for example, all of these different dimensions are sensed through using samayama, but some people might sense them more deeply than others. But intuitively, everyone senses all of them. That's just the nature of how this works. This intuition. In Sutra 34, using samayama on the heart, then we end up with knowledge of the mind, so that we end up with the place where the intelligence resides, and the end result here is you end up thinking much more clearly, logically, and with more compassion and love. And this is a huge advantage that other people don't take advantage of. Sutra 35, we talk about the worldly experience that consists of the notion there's no distinction between self and pure intelligence. Although the two are completely distinct, the worldly experience exists for another, and using samayama, that exists for itself to get the knowledge of what's going on. So this is where the focus should be, according to Patanjali, and not these other things we've talked about along the way. It's really trying to reach higher and higher levels effectively through greater and greater meditation. And the higher levels are conceptually higher dimensions. If we think of the dimensions that we're in as being, say, a tabletop, 2 dimensions, then we can raise ourselves up above it to go into 3 dimensions, 4 dimensions, 5 dimensions, higher and higher, and see more and more of the vistas all around us. In Sutra 36, we come up with the intuition as well as a higher sense of hearing, touch, vision, taste, and smell are born that are far beyond what physically we have. In section 37, all of these things that are being accomplished, if they're not, they're obstacles to samadhi. I'm skipping ahead here to 38. Loosening the cause of bondage, and by knowledge of the passageways of the mind can enter the body into the body of others. So you can actually disassociate from your body and associate with the body of someone else. If you would want to, sometimes this might help you to cure or heal this other person. So it's not simply a parlor trick. Now skipping ahead to number 39, by mastery over the udanya, the vital air, one attains the power of levitation and doesn't come in contact with things like water, mud, and thorns. So, for example, if you go check the annals of the Catholic Church, you'll see that, for example, there was a priest in a town in Italy who levitated not simply over the altar, or he levitated over the church and over the town for days on end, and they had to figure out how to get him down so that he'd come eat. So it isn't simply the yogis that are doing this. It's any sort of person that works, that meditates, that prays, that tries to achieve enlightenment. You can actually levitate or move through the air. In Sutra 40, we have mastery over samanya, the vital air, and you attain radiance, that you actually have a glow that comes out of you by drawing on the energies that are all around you. In Sutra 41, using samayama, we can attain really incredible hearing, so-called divine hearing, the sound of the higher realms here, and all of the things that go with it. In Sutra 42, by performing samayama on the relationship between the body and the ether, and performing samapati on the lightness of cotton, you can acquire the ability to travel through the sky. So this is physically taking you off into the sky, as an ability that came up. In Sutra 43, we have the state of mind that's projected outside the body, which is not an imagined state. Is called the great out-of-body experience, and the covering of the light is destroyed. And so this appears to indicate that the mind out of the body can go in two ways, an imagined way and a non-imagined way, and one of them has this covering of light and one of them doesn't. In Sutra 44, we use samayama on the gross nature, the essential nature, the subtle nature, and the constitution and purpose of objects to attain mastery over the elements. So you can, in fact, manipulate things that would be called magic here. You can convert water into wine, for example, which Jesus of Nazareth did if you read in the New Testament at a wedding. If we go ahead to Sutra, we're up to 44. Here's 45. So as a result of all of this, there are no limitations to the body's natural abilities and all of these mystic powers that manifest themselves, and the body attains perfection. So there you have what might be possible from using these other dimensions that we've talked about here, that are, if you will, not available. The earth doesn't obstruct the yogi by its quality of solidness, so the yogi can walk through stone. You can literally vibrate, increase your energy, and walk through walls. water, though moist, doesn't wet the yogi. You can end up actually walking through water or walking on top of water, and you will not get wet. Fire, though hot, will not burn you. Wind, though moving, will not budge you. And the ether, which normally does not cover anything, covers the yogi such that you remain invisible. That means that you've gone up into some of these other dimensions that we talked about. And so even those that have these same powers can't find you. You're invisible to them. And so it goes. There are 8 powers here. Anima, the minuteness, the ability to shrink one's body size to be atomic, to go down to the size of an atom, for example. Number 2 is lightness, the ability to make the body as light as one desires in terms of weight. Largeness, you can make the body as heavy you want, so it can't be budged. The ability to attain anything one desires, such as I want to touch the moon with my fingertips. The freedom of will, the ability to be unobstructed in one's desires. One can dive into the earth just as one dives into water. The mastery, or the ability to control the elements and their qualities, and then to control other beings. The lordship, the ability to control the outward appearance, disappearance, and rearrangement of the elements. And then finally, the ability to manipulate the elements at will, according to one's fancy. And all of this is with your body alone. No machines, no meters, no gadgets, no anything. In 46, we see the perfection of the body consists of possessing beauty, charm, strength, and also the power of a thunderbolt. So this is truly godlike properties. In 47, the performance of samayama on the process of knowing, on the essence, the sense organs, on ego, on the constitution of the gunas, and on the purpose of the gunas that comes control over the senses. So this is goes through a whole series of these things to take you there. In 48, as a result of all this, comes speed, like the speed of mind. You can run, hundreds of miles per hour. The activity that's independent of the bodily senses, and then the mastery over primordial matter. And so these are incredible things that you achieve out of yoga. And in 49, it's only for one who discerns the difference between these things and is truly omniscient, omnipotent, but also compassionate and therefore knowing when and how to do these things. Okay, these are not simply parlor tricks. You would do this for a reason. And so with that, I think we're done here. I'm just going to skip ahead to make sure. In 50, Sutra 50, the detachment even from this attainment of omniscience and omnipotence and destroying all your faults results in supreme liberation, that you're really vibrating on a much higher plane than those around you. And as such, this is something that you should strive to attain, but it requires a huge amount of work. In 51, if you're soliciting the celestial beings that you sense there are other beings out there that are ethereal, you shouldn't become smug, because you can end up paying for this by misusing these properties. And with that, I think we're done. 52, by performing samayama on the moment and its sequence, one attains knowledge born of discrimination. And that's the key thing, born of discrimination. With this, you've really achieved everything. So I encourage everyone to go read the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali. These are not science fiction. These are things that have been taught for thousands of years. Undoubtedly, they were taught in earlier time epochs, say when there was an Atlantis or a Lemuria or a Mu or a Hyperborea or whatever, that they were aware of these things. And it's something that's been lost in modern Western civilization. Thank you very much.